Hello everyone, my name is Mekkah and you're watching WAIFU, where we analyze interesting Fire Emblem units. What else did you think it meant? In 2016, on October the 1st, an atrocity was committed on the Fire Emblem subreddit. Gareth was voted as the worst remaining unit during the creation of the FE10 Democratic tier list. This put him in the bottom 6, below Astrid, Oliver and Peleus. Today, I will prove to you that this was a fate Gareth did not deserve, so that hopefully he did not die for nothing. Gareth joins very late into Radiant Dawn, so late that there is no way to avoid for this video to be written with spoilers. So if you haven't finished Radiant Dawn yet, and you want to avoid knowing details about the last segment of it, consider this your warning. I will mostly focus on gameplay aspects, but I can't avoid naming a couple of key characters in the last bit of the story, and there are some big spoilers in there. I've got plenty of other spoiler-free videos to check out, so perhaps you can take a look at those instead, while I talk about my man Gareth here. So as I said, Gareth is pretty late to the party. You only have access to his abilities for the last two maps, 4E4 and 4E5. Most players will be using two criteria to decide who to bring to ultimate maps like this. They want characters they know and love, and they want characters that are useful. The first criterion gives Gareth a big disadvantage. He is barely a character. He is not recruitable in Path of Radiance and he has like 2 lines in that game. Radiant Dawn doesn't give him a whole lot of screen time either. How is he supposed to beat fan favorites like Mia and Nephany, who players have had the pleasure of using and getting to know for 2 entire games? Even some underdeveloped characters from this game, such as members of the Dawn Brigade, will often be closer to the player's heart than Gareth. Therefore, Gareth has something to prove to the player before they're willing to grant him that elusive unit slot. Unfortunately, this is where things tend to go very wrong. Not because Gareth isn't useful, but because he's a little tricky to utilize. So the few players that give Gareth a chance might end up using him poorly and then get poor results. And if those players also spread these bad experiences around on, for example, Reddit or YouTube, that causes a lot of people to parrot the idea that Gareth is bad. And before you know it, people will be telling each other that he's the worst character of all time. I'm going to do my best to undo this damage and show you how useful Gareth can be. It's not going to be difficult, and it's not going to be for LTCers or speedrunners only. Gareth can be a great help to anyone. The reason most people write off Gareth is because of his stats, so let's take a look at those. Gareth is a Laguz character, which means he starts off untransformed. If he transforms, all of his combat stats other than HP and luck are doubled. I assume no one with half a brain would leave Gareth to fend for himself untransformed when he comes with a Laguz stone to use, so let's take a look at his transformed stats. Gareth is a man of extremes. Each of his stats tends to be ridiculously high or low. His HP and defense are the former category. 82 HP and 42 defense are about as tanky as it gets on the physical side. However, his 14 speed and 18 resistance at this point of the game are downright laughable. These 4 stats are the reason Gareth is often made fun of, because when he joins, the only enemies he'll be countering will ignore his sky-high defense and instead hit on his poor resistance, and they're definitely going to be able to double that awful 14 speed of his. Fortunately, Gareth does have a very high 44 strength. Taking his breath into account, he has 62 attack, which is pretty damn strong. But his accuracy is on the low side at only 165, and the enemies late in the game are dodgy enough to give him very subpar hit rates, so he might never be able to make use of that formidable might. Sounds bad, doesn't it? Especially since he can't even attack on turn 1 player phase, since he needs to use a Laguz stone. At this point, we're looking at a unit that joins late, needs a turn to transform, can't hit the broadside of the barn, and has his stats in all the wrong areas. What could possibly redeem him? Let's go find out. To understand why Gareth is actually good, you need to know a little bit about the 2 maps he's available in, the 4th and the 5th maps of Radiant Dawn's 5-part final chapter. 4E4 is a rectangular kill boss map. The only enemies besides the boss are these elemental spirits of fire, wind and thunder, some of which are protecting him. This map is pretty easy to clear in one turn by shoving or killing the spirits that are in the way and ignoring the rest. This is not a map that Gareth is helpful in. In fact, if you deploy him here and you don't clear the map in one turn, you could even end up dying, since the spirits can kill him pretty quickly. They have a massive 20 movement, so they can get to him anywhere on the map unless he's completely blocked off. You can deploy him to do a bit of shoving and get a 1-turn clear, but you have plenty of other shovers and you don't really need that many. My argument as to why Gareth is good is going to be focused on the last map of the game, 4E5, where you fight the final boss. Here's a quick primer on 4E5 in case you haven't played Radiant Dawn at all, or it's just been a while. Up until now in the Fire Emblem series, final boss fights are fairly straightforward. There's a big bad dragon, and you use your big bad anti-dragon weapons against him and the dragon goes down. Not for this one though. You fight the goddess Ashera. Ashera is surrounded by 8 protective auras, and each of these has to be taken down before you can attack her. These auras have no weapon, but they do have the Aurora skill, which works a bit like a guaranteed counter. Every time you hit them, they will deal back half the damage you did. They also have Mantle, which actually does 4 things at once. First off, it negates the damage of any weapon that hasn't been blessed by Yune. This is mostly irrelevant because during the endgame, Yune blesses all the equipped weapons of your characters, including the goose, so everyone should be able to pierce through this. It also restores HP equal to their luck at the start of the turn, so that's 40 HP. Mantle also gives them hidden Nihil and Fortune skills, meaning you cannot activate any skills or critical hits against them. That means fights against these auras are going to be based on raw stats mostly. And stat-wise, these auras are no pushover. They have 90 HP and 30 in both defense and resistance. In addition, the corner auras are all on cover tiles, which grant plus 10 defense, while the ones in between are on wardwood tiles, which grant plus 10 resistance. So every aura effectively has either 40 defense and 30 resistance, or 30 defense and 40 resistance. They're also pretty hard to double with their high 35 speed. That means you need 39 speed to double them, a feat that only a few classes can accomplish. That high speed also makes them rather evasive. This max skill Titania, on low biorhythm, has 194 hit, but she still only manages to pull 59 hit against an aura. Only very accurate characters will be able to hit them reliably. Just to remind you, this isn't just one enemy you have to kill, there's 8 of these, and then there's also Ashera herself to kill. Her stats are even higher, with 120 HP, 35 defense, and 50 resistance, and she also attacks back with a 65 attack magical weapon called Judge. To finish her off properly, you need to have Ike deal the final blow or she will revive herself, so you've got your work cut out for you. Now, how is a unit with abysmal combat like Gareth going to help you clear this map? The answer lies in his skill, Blood Tide. This supportive skill raises the strength and skill of all directly adjacent allies by 5 each. Both of these buffs are insanely useful when taking on Ashera's auras. The plus 5 skill is effectively granting your other characters plus 10 hit. That might seem small, but remember that Radiant Dawn uses the 2 system, so it can be a bit more than that. For example, my Titania from earlier had 59 hit on an aura, which translates to around 66% true hit. Attacking next to Gareth instead gives her 69 hit, which is 81% true hit, a 50% increase. I don't think I have to convince you that this increase in reliability is very welcome against these dodgy auras. Unexpectedly missing is one of the worst feelings in Fire Emblem, especially since leaving an aura injured at the end of your turn results in them regaining their health thanks to Mantle. But the plus 5 strength buff is even better. Between the auras alone you have to deal 720 damage. Counting Ashera's 120 HP, that goes up to 840. Without the aid of Blood Tide, there is no possible way to deal that much damage in one turn. It's even tricky to do in 2 turns if you don't manage your damage properly. And I'm not just advocating for a quick clear just because I love low turn count playthroughs or speedruns. Every extra turn you spend on this map will make it harder for you. There are spirits coming in as reinforcements, and Ashera herself will launch various devastating attacks that can kill your units. The quicker you're done, the better. Getting plus 5 strength means a unit does 5 extra damage per blow, so that means 10 extra damage for someone who double attacks. That might not sound like much until you realize you can use it many times in a single turn if you position your units properly. Gareth has 4 spaces around him that you can attack from. You can use units with Kanto to attack from a space next to Gareth, and then move away so someone else can use the space. You can use a Heron, preferably Raphael, to allow 4 units to move and attack again. You can even use Brave weapons to use the damage boost multiple times with a single unit. I think figuring out how to position Gareth and your other units is a very interesting gameplay aspect, and it's especially intriguing compared to other final maps in Fire Emblem, so feel free to get creative. However, critics of Gareth might say that he will not survive giving these boosts. Just like 44, 45 has these elemental spirits that when given the opportunity will attack Gareth and kill him. Gareth might have high HP, but his speed and res are so awful that he will die. My answer to those who say Gareth dies in the final map if you try to deploy him is simple. You simply haven't bothered looking for solutions. Gareth is perfectly capable of surviving the final chapter. You just need to take a couple of very simple measures, none of which are going to negatively impact the rest of your army. The most simple and elegant solution to this problem is the provoke skill. Shinon and Skrimir both join with it, and it's easy enough to take it off of them and leave it in the convoy. In 45, all you have to do is put provoke on a unit that can survive the spirits, make sure that they cannot counter at range, and there you go, Gareth is safe. I like to use a bulky Laguz Royal like Gifka for this, but it works with a Bjork like Jill too. as long as you make sure she is using a one range weapon like the Irvin. The reason Provoke works so well on these spirits is that they cannot resist the temptation of a Provoke unit that cannot counter them. Gareth might have bad stats for the situation, but he does have 1-2 range, and enemies really do not enjoy getting countered, and apparently Provoke is enough to get them away from Gareth. There really is no drawback to doing this, but if you somehow manage to not take Provoke into endgame, there are different solutions too. One of them is to simply kill the spirits. Some of your units are simply not that good at attacking auras, but are perfectly capable of taking out a spirit. Aforementioned Titania is a good example. Nyla also is not very likely to double auras, but she can reliably kill any kind of spirit. How many spirits do you have to kill to make Gareth safe? This ties well into my next point. Gareth is better at surviving these spirits than a lot of people give him credit for. There is only 3 spirits on the map on turn 1 of the endgame. A Thunder and Fire Spirit with 36 attack, and a Wind Spirit with 39 attack. Gareth's 82 HP and 18 resistance actually allows him to get doubled by both the Fire and Thunder Spirits and still have 10 HP left over. So you only have to kill the Wind Spirit, but it's not a bad idea to kill the other spirits too, if you've got the units to spare. You can also simply buff his resistance to the point where he survives. I mentioned the plus resistance Wardwood tiles earlier, and they're not just present underneath the auras but around them as well. Putting Gareth on those will boost his resistance up to 28. At this point, even getting double attacked by the 3 spirits will not kill Gareth. If you're wondering, these enemy stats are the same no matter what. They don't get changed depending on the mode, and they also don't get stat variation. The only variation possible is that you're playing easy mode, in which case Gareth and all your other units get +5 in every stat. You might be concerned about Ashera's attack finishing Gareth off, but funnily enough, her first attack actually deals physical damage, and thus hits on Gareth's ridiculous defense. Even though Gareth is standing close to Ashera, which increases her damage output, he's only taking 2 damage. Her later attacks are much more dangerous, but that's all the more reason to use Gareth to finish her off quickly. If this doesn't convince you that Gareth is easy to keep safe, I should mention that you can also use Pure Water or the Ward Staff to further buff his resistance. But I hope at this point it's clear that it's not that hard to make him survive, it's just that people haven't tried hard enough. Now there is one more point, one more pitfall that people fall into when trying to justify that Gareth is bad. Ina is better. Yes, you do get another red dragon with Blood Tide. Her name is Ina, and she's a lot easier to use with her 38 resistance. However, this reasoning is every bit as flawed as all the class by class based arguments I've heard so far. Up there with, Isadora is bad because I have enough paladins, Emilia should go general because there's more other great knights and paladins than there's generals, and Lucius is better than Urk because Pent exists. Ina does not invalidate Gareth. They both boost other people's strength and skill. You can even stack their bonuses, giving the characters they support a huge +10 strength and skill. Saying Ina's existence makes Gareth unnecessary is like not opening a treasure chest with an energy ring in it because you already have one in your inventory. Why would you not want more of a good thing? And having both is a very good thing. A lot of the footage used in this video came from kirbymastah's normal mode speedrun of FE10. He uses Gareth and Ina to great effect. He uses Blood Tide a total of 13 times, for around 115 extra damage. Even if you only count half of that as Gareth's contribution, that's a lot of extra damage, especially for someone who isn't even attacking. Deployment slots are not a good argument against Gareth either. At this point in the game, you have 19 characters to choose from, but you can only bring 17 to the final map. But among these 19 are Sanaki, Kurthnaga and Soth, 3 forced characters that are all going to be very bad at fighting auras. Gareth's effective damage output is way higher than any of theirs. Even if you found a use for one of them, there is no way you can justify deploying all 3 of them over him. Speaking of deployment slots, the endgame of Radiant Dawn is very limited on space. You are forced to bring Ike, Mekkah, Soth, Sanaki, Kurthnaga, Ina and one of the Heron clan. Then, you get to bring 10 more people of your choosing. Every other character you want to bring has to occupy one of these 10 precious unit slots. This is one of the reasons I was so surprised that people were valuing units like Astrid and Peleus higher, because in order for them to even come to endgame and realize their potential, they have to take the place of a good unit. If I don't bring Peleus or Astrid, I could just bring someone else instead, and I would hardly notice the difference. But Gareth, on the other hand, will always join you. If you choose not to use Gareth, you don't get anything in return. This brings me to my next point. Gareth is completely free of opportunity cost. All you need to do in order for him to be helpful is apply some common sense. Bring Provoke, put him on the right tile, make him use the Lagustone he comes with, and so on. None of these options cost your other units EXP or waste your time. And in return, you get +5 strength and +5 skill on every character that attacks next to him. That's a really good utility, and he's not asking for anything in return. Now I get that Gareth is not around for very long. He's only providing Blood Tide for one map. but it's a significant positive thing in that one map, whereas a lot of other units in Radiant Dawn need a lot more help, and usually their impact on the maps they're around for is pretty limited. Like for example, if you train Astrid, does she really do anything in late part 3 or part 4 that you couldn't already get by using some other unit? To make it perfectly clear, I don't think Gareth is a top tier unit. He might not even belong in the upper half of a Radiant Dawn tier list, but I think he's more helpful than the units that need babying to become somewhat usable, and he's definitely better than the units that need to take up a slot in endgame just to have any real availability at all, such as Renning and Stefan. Hopefully I've made it clear by now why Gareth, despite all of his flaws and lack of characterization, deserves a unit slot in your final chapter roster. He's not the most interesting character, and he definitely has some holes that enemies can exploit, but when used right, he's a big help in a pretty tough boss fight, giving you more and more reliable damage output. He rewards players who make proper preparations and are good at positioning, which I think shows good design. So if you ever run into someone who says Gareth is one of the worst characters ever because he gets killed so easily and he has poor speed and resistance and because Ina is better, please show them this video so that they too can learn to appreciate Gareth. Thank you for watching this episode of WAIFU. If you had a good time, please recruit the thumbs up button by turning it blue. And if you'd like to see more of my content, check out my other videos or subscribe. Bye!